For football players, getting drafted to the NFL is the culmination of years or even a lifetime of hard work. They've sacrificed countless hours striving for this life-changing moment where they officially become something that they've always dreamed about. The draft process is very hectic and can be just as stressful, if not for players, than playing in a massive game. There's way more that goes into it than what fans see on their TVs on draft night. So, we're going to take a deeper look into what it's like getting drafted to the NFL. Before the draft. The first part of this process involves declaring for the actual draft. With the NFL, the rule is that you must be at least 3 years out of high school to declare for the draft. So this means that it doesn't actually matter how many years of college football someone has played or what year they are considered. For example, a player who redshirted and then only played 2 seasons of college ball is still eligible to declare for the draft. For this past NFL draft, in addition to the players who used up all of their college eligibility and were forced to declare, 128 underclassmen declared early for the draft. 98 of those players were granted special eligibility, which means they met the league's 3-year eligibility rule and submitted to a written application in which they renounced their remaining college football eligibility. The other 30 had already fulfilled their degree requirements. The deadline for these underclassmen to declare is in the middle of January, right after their college seasons end. After a player has graduated or forfeited the rest of their college eligibility, the next thing they do is sign with an agent. This agent quickly becomes arguably the most important person in the player's life, so choosing one is not something rushed or overlooked. Players typically meet with multiple agents from various agencies before settling on one. The agent will be in charge of talking to brands and negotiating sponsorship deals, in addition to coordinating interviews and meetings with NFL teams interested in potentially drafting the player. For top prospects, they can and will sign endorsement deals before even being drafted. Draft Combine. Once an agent is chosen, the next biggest thing for a prospect to focus on is the Draft Combine. Also referred to as the Underwear Olympics, the Combine in Indy is where coaches and execs from around the league watch intensely as prospects participate in a variety of drills and events. Over the years, the Combine has risen in popularity and has now become a spectacle aired every year on TV for fans to watch. As a result of the weight teams place on the Combine, prospects train very hard with private trainers almost immediately after their college careers end, leading all the way up to the Combine. The trainers will put them through workouts and drills that mimic or simulate what they'll eventually go through in Indy. The individual events, such as the 40-yard dash or 3-cone drill, are timed, and these numbers are heavily discussed, not only by teams, but also the media. For skill players especially, performances in these drills can raise or tank their draft stock. An impressive 40 time can lead to someone going from viewed as a day 2 prospect to a first-round pick. It can also just as easily knock a player out of the first round. DK Metcalf is the perfect example of this, as he struggled mightily in the 3-cone drill and recorded a very disappointing time. All of a sudden, teams were questioning his agility because of this, and the freak of nature eventually slid all the way down to the Seahawks at pick number 64. Other individual events at the Combine include bench press, vertical and broad jumps, and 20 and 60-yard shuttles. All of these are meant to give teams a better feel for prospects' athleticism in terms of speed, strength, and agility. The prospects are also put through different kinds of drills that are not stat-driven. These include passing and route running drills, along with other position-specific drills. Not every drill or event is required for players to participate in. Prospects who feel that they have nothing left to prove in an area, or don't feel 100% and want to avoid hurting their stock, will sit out for particular ones, or even the Combine entirely. Joe Burrow didn't throw or participate in drills at the Combine, and this didn't dissuade the Bengals from taking him first overall. Teams also use the Combine to judge prospects on more than just their physical attributes. It's a time for them to test their mental abilities and get to know them on a personal level just as much as anything else. They schedule interviews with a handful of prospects they are interested in. There is no shortage of execs or coaches representing the teams in these interviews, and they have the players go through film or talk through particular plays and scenarios to test their football knowledge. The questions don't end there, though. Personal questions are asked about a player's background or passions outside of the game, and sometimes teams push the boundaries on what is acceptable or normal, with some out-of-pocket questions that seemingly have no relevance. Here are some of the strangest questions that have supposedly been asked over the years. Do you find your mother attractive? What's your murder weapon of choice? How many ways could you use a brick in a minute? What kind of fish are you? Pro Days. After the combine comes a 5 to 6 week window of pro days and private workouts. Pro days are hosted by the colleges, and they are pretty similar to the combine. Coaches, execs, and scouts travel the country heading to as many of these as they can. The bigger the program, the more people and more important people they send. For example, Alabama's pro day attracts every team and even head coaches, while smaller schools may have only a few teams in attendance. At Bama's pro day last year, Bill Belichick showed up. And who did the Pats end up taking with their first-round pick again? These pro days allow prospects the chance to either build off of impressive combine performances, prove that poor ones were just one-time flukes, or just show what they have if they missed the combine due to injury. Similar to the combine, some players will not participate in certain drills if they feel there is nothing left to prove or that they can only hurt their stock. The drills and events are much of the same, but it's left up to each school to determine what they're going to do, so there are some individual spins put on them. Draft Day. After months of breaking down film and talking through it all, teams typically have their boards narrowed down to a select few prospects they'll target with their picks. Especially in the earlier rounds, they either have their guy already or it's down to 2 to 3 prospects. They also have a pretty good feel for what the other teams around them will do with their picks. Each team has a war room with every important exec and coach in it for the draft. This is where they talk through final pick decisions or negotiate potential trades. On the other side of things, around 20 to 25 players are typically invited to the NFL Draft Green Room. This honor is reserved for players expected to go earlier in the draft. They hang out backstage as Roger Goodell announces each pick. Right before they finally hear their name called, either the GM or head coach of the team picking them usually calls them to give them a heads up that they're about to be drafted. The player lets their family know about the exciting news before walking up to the stage where they are given their new team's hat and a jersey to hold. They then embrace Roger Goodell in whatever manner their heart desires. Some players go for the classy handshake or dap up, while others show more emotion, like Danny Shelton, who lifted Goodell off the ground with a bear hug when he was taken in the first round of the 2015 draft. After that exchange, they typically do a quick interview with an ESPN reporter right off the stage as the pundits intensely debate and react to the pick. While the moment is extremely special for most, being in the green room can actually get pretty awkward for others. If a player starts sliding down the first round and even sometimes out of it entirely, cameras will cut to that player sitting with his family looking either sad or despondent, like when Lamar Jackson fell all the way to the Ravens with the 32nd pick in the 2018 draft. Things obviously ended up working out pretty well for Lamar, but it isn't always the case, and it certainly doesn't feel like that in the moment, as the player knows the world is watching their disappointment unfold on live television. For players who are either not invited to the draft or choose not to attend, they either watch at home with their family or host or attend a party in their honor. Just like the players in the green room, they will receive a call from the GM or head coach right before they are chosen. Being with their families and significant others in the privacy of their own homes can lead to viral moments, as cameras are put there to include in the live draft feed. Like Russell Wilson's then-girlfriend absolutely losing her mind when he got the call during the 2012 draft, or CeeDee Lamb's girlfriend reaching for his phone during the 2019 draft. With the draft unfolding over 3 days with 259 picks and 7 rounds, it can be a marathon of a roller coaster of emotions for players and even their families. They are all well aware of how this moment can forever change the course of their lives. As a result, it leads to incredible highs and devastating lows. After the draft. Even before the draft officially comes to a close, teams are on the phone with players who will go undrafted and their agents trying to negotiate deals to immediately sign them. These are where some of the real diamonds in the rough are found, and the teams take this part of the process just as seriously as anything else. For the players drafted, they are in communication with the team who just took them in terms of next steps. They coordinate with team personnel to schedule flights almost immediately to their new cities. Depending on the star level of the player, some may be flown out on private planes with their families, while later round draft picks are subjected to flying commercial. A funny example of this was with Nick Chubb. While standing waiting for his bags, he was subjected to some pretty awkward conversations. Boy, how things change. Once they arrive in their new home, the players are scheduled to go to press conferences, photo shoots, and meetings with the front office and coaching staff. They are given tours around the team's facility and become familiar with where they will be spending the majority of their waking hours moving forward. From there, they must find their new physical homes. For the non-stars, this typically means an apartment, while top picks may look for actual houses. They must quickly settle in and acclimate themselves to their new surroundings as rookie minicamps take place just a couple of weeks following the draft. This is where they will compete for their jobs or prove their worth. As you can see, there really is no off-season for players making the leap from college ranks to the pros, but getting drafted and signing their first contract makes it all worth it in the end.